Manever I say ma PENDREAM TV. PENDREAM TV there, osia dem yopo.
We're starting with those salient, hard conversations because guess what? There are myriad issues taking place in our country, and we need those people who have been there and done that to react to them. This morning, we host a man who for many years was Auditor-General of the Republic of Ghana until he was ousted on the back of age. The court ruled after a while that he had been ousted improperly. He had the opportunity of returning, but decided not to. Today, he shares his perspective on myriad issues of national scope. Domelevo is my guest this morning. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. How are you?
I have been well, by God's grace, and we're still in the Easter season. I hope you're celebrating well.
Exactly.
It's been a while since we had an interaction. I'd like to find out from you, what has Mr. Domelevo been up to?
Thank you, Benjamin. I am on pension, but I have a few assignments outside the country. So I'll be moving around supporting public financial management issues outside the country. And also, I'm a member of the Audit and Finance Committee of the Global Fund. So that has been sending me to Geneva very often. So that's what I've been doing more or less, and speaking to people on TV, on radio. You might have seen some of those interviews and conversations.
Maybe, I don't know why, but this proverb comes to mind. You baby, ako baby. I don't know whether...
Exactly. I've actually said that several times, that in Krudos,
okay, so let's get into the work of an Auditor General. I think it is proper. Yes, the Constitution clearly states or stipulates what your work should be or what the work of any other Auditor General should be. But you came with a fresh perspective, different dimensions, implementing surcharges and all of that. Just walk us through very briefly, what does it really mean to be Auditor General, and what made you so different when you were in that position?
Thank you very much, Benjamin. According to Article 187, Clause 2, or 1872 of the Constitution, the Auditor General has the mandate to audit the central government, the local government, the courts, the universities, public corporations, and any establishment established by law in the country, and report to Parliament. Clause 5 says he must report to Parliament within 6 months after the end of the financial year on which he or she is reporting. I must say, Auditors General are all the same. I think my predecessors and my successor all do the same audit. The difference is holding people accountable. If you may recall, Occupy Ghana filed a suit at the Supreme Court against Attorney General, which is usually referred to as the Auditor General's case, because in the views of Occupy Ghana, the provision in Clause 7 of Article 187 were not being adhered to by the Auditor General. That clause provides, if I can paraphrase, that in the performance of his or her duties under the Constitution or any other law, the Auditor General may disallow any item of expenditure which is contrary to law and surcharge the person who authorized or made the payment. And this is the provision which made the difference. Personally, I love that provision, and I thought it was the main thing that the Auditor General must do to bring a difference if you have to hold people accountable in the public service. That is the provision I took very seriously. If you remember, early 2018, I disallowed 5.4 billion, which was equivalent to 1.1 billion US dollars those days. And I know the president was very happy. He praised me in the State of the Nation address. Again, even at Independence 2018, 6 March, he praised me during that independence. So I think that is the crux of the matter. I keep saying, and forgive me, with no disrespect at all intended to the journalists, I said, if Auditor General will not implement the provisions under Clause 7 of Article 187, then he's operating like a journalist. And maybe even the journalists are better.
Why do you say that, though?
Yes, because the journalists don't have mandate to hold people accountable
Right.
beyond bringing it to the public domain. But the Auditor General has the mandate to hold the individuals accountable and get the money refunded or retrieve the money.
But in the case of surcharging, among others, I mean, famously, Kroll and Associates, Senior Minister Osafo Mafo and all of that, some say that was the beginning of the end for you, once you started touching the lion's tail. But the point being that surcharging, how should one go about it? Do you think you overdid it at a point? Or was it that, because then again, there was a lot of pushback, there was a lot of fighting you, especially on that point, and some other related cases. And that was where some real tension started developing between your outfit and the executive. So surcharging, how far is too far?
Let me say that I was actually at the warming up stage. I had not even reached the maximum yet. I thought we should go further than where I was. And let me be very honest with you, Benjamin. If you have to hold people accountable in order to prevent corruption, we must start at the top. I've always advocated that we should hold the bull by the horns, not by the tail. If we start at the top holding people accountable, then it cascades or it will come, the effect will come down. I usually say when it storms at the top, it will drizzle at the bottom. So once you start holding people accountable, it will bring about deterrence throughout the system. And that is what I think I was doing. And I don't seriously think I went too far. I was determined to do even more.
But did you do what was right? Because some said that you were not, in your permutations, in your calculations, in how you went about it, you had not taken stock of the right things.
Well, those are people, they're entitled to their views, you know. So I have no difficulty with that. But you should understand also that this is the first time that we are doing the disallowance and surcharge. So it is an area which we don't have the institutional memory or the experience to refer to. If you comb around the world, you may not even find examples. The one that comes very close is to what we call the Napoleon system of auditing. That is the French. But the French system is judicial. So the Auditor General is actually a judge. And it combines the audit work and the judiciary work. So the Auditor General sends his team on the field. They go do the audit, identify the findings, they bring it. Another unit of the Auditor General's office does the prosecution, and there is another unit which is responsible for adjudicating or the judicial work. So the judge, the Auditor General is also a judge, and his team, they are all judges, and they are prosecutors, and they are auditors. That one is a bit extreme, which you call the Napoleon system. Our system is the Westminster system, or the parliamentary system, where we have an Auditor General who is mandated to do the entire audit. He only delegates or uses other people to assist him to do it. So it is a matter of perception. And let me say that I do not claim that what we're doing, there may not be any fault at all about it. I'm fallible. Everybody is fallible, so there's no problem about that. But seriously speaking, I think from my point of view, the judiciary did not help the cause. It is not because I was doing things wrongly. You talked about Osafo Mafo. Yes, that is a very popular case, the Kroll and Associates. But there is another one, Zoom Lion. Zoom Lion also, the same thing. When we disallow and surcharge, the case went to the High Court. the High Court judge, the judge ruled in our favor that we did the right thing. But how did Zoom Lion get out of it? They appealed against the ruling, and when they were appealing or they went to the Court of Appeal, the issue was not challenging the ruling at the High Court. They challenged the jurisdiction of the Auditor General. That is, that's the mandate of the Auditor General extends to the private sector. That was the issue they challenged at the Court of Appeal. And Court of Appeal said, well, since this involves interpreting the Constitution, that is Clause 7 of Article 187, then it must have to go to the Supreme Court. So the Court of Appeal pushed the case into the territory of the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court, in their wisdom, first, before talking about what they decided, through my lawyers, we argued at the Supreme Court that there was no need for even interpretation again, because they had earlier on interpreted that in
Mr. Domelevo, okay, so I can hear you now. They had earlier determined that that's where we lost you. You can go ahead now.
Yes. In Occupy Ghana versus Attorney General, the Supreme Court had earlier on determined that if we want to interpret the person, because if you remember what I said, the Auditor General should hold any person who incurs or pays an expenditure which is contrary to law. So they said the person in that includes public servants as well as private persons and entities. So that is already there. If you take a copy of the judgment, if you look at the consequential orders, you see, I think the consequential order number 3 or the 4th one, they defined the person over there. So we drew the court attention that there's no need for you to interpret it again. The Court of Appeal just have to apply it instead of redefining it or interpreting it. But the Supreme Court came out with a different verdict to say that, well, the trial judge or the judge at the High Court did not find Zoom Lion guilty of fraud. Hence, the mandate of the Auditor General did not get activated. We argue that fraud is not in the Constitution. They are importing a word into the words into the Constitution. But then, you know, their decision is final. So I don't really think that we're doing something wrong. We think the judiciary had a very different approach, which I don't fault them for.
But why do you think they had that different approach? Because in any case, we can also talk about, if we're going to, elongate this, we can also talk about when you were giving your marching orders by the executive and how long it took before the judiciary finally came through with the fact that actually what had been done was in error. But by that time, you had been relieved of your position, someone else had been put in your office, and you said that you would let sleeping dogs lie, you wouldn't come back. But what then is your reaction to these delays as far as the judicial process is concerned?
So that's what I'm saying, that the judiciary have their own approach, because that victory is a Pyrrhic victory. It's a victory which is useless. It's as good as losing the case. Why would the judiciary, which in the past gave judgments, several judgments in Electoral Commission's case, interpreting the Constitution at times within 2 weeks, within a month, so that the process can go on, wait till they realized it was time for me to have actually left office before they came out with their decision. And when I read, remember when the judgment came, I was quite full of praise for them. But when I read the judgment itself, it annoyed me. I was like, look at these guys. They were thinking about themselves. I don't think the case is what they were judging, because if you read the judgment, in the judgment they stated that the independence that the Auditor General has, the president could not have asked him to go on leave. I'm just paraphrasing. And if they allow it to go or slide, a time will come when, in the course of election, the president may tell the Electoral Commission to also proceed on leave. And there may be a time when the Chief Justice himself can be asked to proceed on leave. So they could not support it. So I said, look at these guys, they were protecting themselves. Hence, they waited till it was a Pyrrhic victory before they pronounced it. So at times, it's like I will do the right thing, but I will do the right thing saying that it is useless to you. So I think the judiciary was not helpful.
So you think this was deliberate? This was calculated?
From my point of view, very deliberate. I don't think it was right because they themselves came out with that phrase, justice delayed is what? Justice denied. And I don't think any group of people should know that better than the Supreme Court.
And of course, this was the time when Justice Enini Yeboah was Chief Justice. It wasn't
Yes.
Gertrude Tokono. But just to clarify, so in terms of the Auditor General's work, from what you know, you have experience now, and you suffered for it, and the extant situation, how much more can the work of the Auditor General be strengthened, be facilitated? What can we do?
Yes, what we can do is clearly stated actually in the directive
Principles of
in the
state policy?
consequential orders
Right.
that was given by the Supreme Court. In fact, in giving the consequential orders, that is telling the Auditor General that hold people accountable anytime you come across expenditures that are contrary to law, they didn't stop there. They went ahead and gave, I think the fourth instruction went to the Attorney General to hold people accountable also, prosecute people if need be, so that we can, in fact, in the judgment, there is a point where they even refer to giving the Auditor General and the Attorney General teeth to bite. So we need a teeth to bite because you see, I have made a statement over and over again, and I'll repeat it, that when there are no consequences for misbehavior or abuse of public funds, the impunity will continue. The abuse of public funds will continue. People have come to the realization that especially when you are within the ruling class, you can misbehave anyhow. You can do anything at all, and you will get away with it. If we create such a society, I think we are going to continue suffering from what we are seeing today. Thank you.
Now that we've dealt with the major bits about, the Auditor General and all of that, there are some current issues that I want us to wade into, starting with tax exemptions, tax waivers, flat rates, and all of that. You have heard a lot of talk from different parts of the political spectrum about that. Because of the environment you operate in, I want to run them by you. For example, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, the Vice President, has spoken about tax amnesty and a flat rate moving forward. And some tax experts have said that would not be the way to go. In fact, it could be a disincentive for those on the other side who have been, paying their taxes diligently. But when you look at our tax system and you look at what the boons we get as a country, and the fact that we have 22 handles each time now you go and make a purchase in some places or you eat and you do that, and you're looking at tax of about 22%. That's more than 1/5. What do you see, and how can we do better without squeezing the ordinary Ghanaian even further?
Thank you very much, Benjamin. When it comes to taxes, I have described what is happening now in another forum as we have moved from taxation to robbery. Government is actually robbing the people. It's so disturbing to know that
We've moved from taxation to robbery.
Yes, we have moved from taxation to robbery. Why I call it robbery is that when you earn income or you earn any money at all, there will be a withholding tax or there will be a pay as you earn. So it is taxed. Immediately you want to use the rest to buy anything at all, there is a litany or a long list of taxes waiting for you, which you have to pay. Even when you are paying for the thing that you bought, including the tax, you are taxed again. Is that not robbery? And from my point of view, it is beyond taxation. It is now robbery. But the sad part of it, which I may have to also quickly add, is that if you look at the uses to which the money is being put, today's day and age where our children are still studying under trees, some in dilapidated accommodation or school buildings, people go to hospitals and they cannot receive the basic health care that they require. We use a lot of money to go and dig a hole, calling it National Cathedral. We don't have our priorities right. And I've made a statement, and I'll repeat it here, that corruption, just as wasteful spending, are all bad for the country because both deny the citizenry the benefit of the public funds. So just as we are fighting against corruption, we must also fight against wastefulness. And in South Africa, they have a very beautiful term in their public financial management law. They call it fruitless and wasteful expenditure. Government has been engaging in so many fruitless and wasteful expenditure, which doesn't help the citizenry when the taxation is going this way. Let me quickly come back to the tax and say that it was one of the areas of concern to me when I was Auditor General. So I actually commissioned an audit into the tax waivers. Unfortunately, the report was not ready before I left office, and it has been kept at that level. If you had seen that report, you will have seen the extent to which the application of the waivers was done or was carried out discriminatorily. Two of us may be in the same industry operating at the same level. Because of maybe who you are, you may get the exemption, I may not get the exemption. I thought there was a lot of indiscretion when it came to the tax exemption, and I thought it was also one of the waste pipes that had been created, contrary to the laws of the country. So let me be honest with you, to make politics out of it and say, when I come, I'm going to scratch it, without studying in detail the effect of it, I think it is very disturbing. Because, look, Benjamin, you know that if you and I, we are trading in the same goods, and I get the exemption, but you don't get the exemption, it immediately gives me an advantage over you, because the profit margin or the price at which I can sell my items become lower, as a result of which I beat you in the business. So we must look at it holistically, get professional advice. This rushing into promising that when I become a president, I'll do this, must stop from NDC, MPP, and all the parties. We must sit down. We don't run economy on just promises.
Right.
You must analyze the economy and look at what policy is good for the country. But what we are seeing today is that anybody who jumps on the political platform is promising and promising and promising. I don't think it is helpful to the country. That must stop. I think our democracy is maturing. We must reach a point where we must look at what is necessary for us to do as a country, instead of just waking up and say, oh, I will give you this, I will give you that. And I think the political campaign has become a matter of promises. And personally, I am not happy about it.
Well, interesting dynamics in there, because some also point to the fact that, listen, there's the e-levy, and you're saying you'll scrap it at some point in the future, assuming you become president, but it's extant now. And some would even ask what sort of advice the vice president would have given into that. But we can sidestep that. One thing that comes to mind, though, it just came up, so please indulge me. You know, in recent times, because the vice president has said that the GRA is harassing businesses. I'm sure you saw that story, talking about the harassment of businesses and all of that. And some people felt, wait, what are you talking about? But the GRA was also lampooned because Reverend Amishadai, the former chair, was 62 and counting.
Commissioner General.
Commissioner General, yes, was 62 and counting. Now he's been replaced with someone who is also 60 plus. I just wanted to draw linkages between that and you. What happened in your case? You were also in that same bracket, and somehow yours was not understood, but others can still serve. Did you find that curious?
Yes, I find it very curious, Benjamin, because in my case, the 60 years did not even catch up. Then he said, I'll go quickly. So I was pushed out because I was being a troublesome boy, you see. I was disturbing. In fact, if you saw the letter I wrote to the president, I drew attention to the fact that I think my audits were disturbing him. And many of his functionaries were complaining that I was disturbing them, making them unpopular. Remember, I came out with that Gate Fund report, which indicted...
And we're about to get to that.
So
anyway.
So it depends upon which part of the team you are. If you are part of them and you are playing the same direction, you can stay in till maybe you are 70. And you see, this is not the first time. Let me draw your attention to something. It is not the first time this has happened anyway. When Professor Duajima was appointed Auditor General, he was 61 years, getting to 62. Do you know that? He was appointed after the pension year. He was 61, getting to 62. He was born in 1939, and he was appointed Auditor General in 2001. But anyway, his date of birth had not yet come, so he was from 61 getting to 62. And by the provisions of the Constitution, he could have been in office for only 5 years. That is 2, 2, and 1, which Article 199 of the Constitution provides for. But he stayed on to about 8 years or 9 years. So this illegality has been happening in the past. So I'm not surprised seeing that they are doing the same thing with the GRA boss. But then again, I found it very disturbing that why are they not minded to even comply with the Constitution? Well, the GRA boss, when he turned 60, constitutionally he could be given extension, a contract for 2 years, and 2 years, and then 1 year, so 5 years. So what stopped the presidency from giving the contract those days? Waiting for 3 years before now going back to right the wrong, I don't think is the right thing to be doing. It goes contrary to good governance, and I think the office of the president may have to stop doing things of that nature. I saw the letter on social media. If it is true, then I was laughing. I said, so were they asleep? What was happening? If you knew that you wanted to keep Benjamin at post, and Benjamin is 60 years, why couldn't you just offer the contract immediately? Said that it is in tandem with good practice, but you wait for over 3 years. Now, the date on which one of the contracts that I saw, I don't know whether I saw it correctly, it seems it dates from 2001 to 2013, and issued in 2024. And then another one now takes it off from 2023 to 2024 or something of that nature. And I say, why are we doing this to ourselves?
Well, it tells you about the kind of system we run. You've mentioned two interesting things that I'll be getting to one after the other: corruption and scholarships. You mentioned those in your last submissions. I'll get to them, but I want to start on the trajectory of corruption. The last time I had Professor Frimpong Boateng in the studio, I asked him about corruption, and he told me that the fight hadn't even started yet. That was what he told me. When you look at the beast of corruption, what do you see? And have we got any better? After all, we have the Office of the Special Prosecutor. We have Shiraj. We have all of these entities. In fact, the World Economics Governance Index report recently rated Ghana 5th in Africa, 1st in West Africa in respect of, such criteria as political stability, rule of law, accountability, and government effectiveness. And guess what? In there, rule of law, law and order, press freedom, and corruption. So I guess some of these entities are saying, maybe we are not doing so badly. What's your take?
Well, those are perspectives. You see, it is like the accounts have a proverb which I like so much. They say that abusia to say quiet, which in actually a bumutum, udrum one who said you have bread. So if you are outside the forest, what you see is different from we who are in the forest. So those are their perspectives. And you see, the institutional arrangement at times is appealing to these external institutions or bodies, because they think that once you put the institutions in place, they will work. But let me be quick to make a point here. I don't think our fight against corruption is going to improve by continuously creating institutions. In fact, we will not continue, we will not even be productive as people. If any time one person fails to discharge his or her duties, we bring in another person to support. I think that if we thought that the fight of corruption must be pushed to a higher level, what we should do is to assess the institutions on the ground and find out what are the shortcomings. Is it that there's some skills they lack? Is it the legal framework? Is it resources? Then we resource them, give them the mandate so that we task them to do the work. If they cannot do it, we push them aside and get the right person to do the work. The continuous creation of institution itself is a fruitless and wasteful expenditure. Do you know how much? I've forgotten the figure, but maybe the millions have been spent to establish the OSP office in Accra.
Indeed. Many millions.
Thank you. And if that office has to be rolled out throughout the country, to the regions and the districts, can you imagine how much will be involved? So have we not, why didn't the government first look at the institutions that were in existence to say, look, for instance, Yoko has offices in all the regions and the districts already. So what is lacking? If it is the mandate, so why don't we just amend the law and give Yoko maybe that mandate? If it is resources, why don't we give the resources? It will have saved us from the overhead. That amount we are spending now to build infrastructure, buy cars, buy printers, computers, and etc., we will have saved that and use it for a more useful purpose than what we are doing.
I see. So in terms of the fight against corruption then, you say it's not merely replicating or duplicating institutions and all of that, but from where you sit, throughout these last 80 years, at least this administration is in power, how well have we fared on a scale of 1 to 10 in fighting corruption or taming it?
You can look at the corruption perception index, and it tells you that we have not done well at all. I cannot agree more with Professor Frimpong Boateng. The fight has not even started. If you look at the leadership, it does not look as if they are serious with fighting corruption. It is just a matter of rhetorics. Yes, as for good speech, we receive them every day or we hear them every day. But when it comes to the action on the ground, some of the issues, even we don't need to wait for commission of inquiry or maybe prosecution. Just a matter of giving a good image of the government. We can say, look, step aside. You can't do this and still be part of us. I was looking at or watching a video from Asia, one of these countries, I've forgotten the name, near Malaysia, that one country, the city, okay, I've forgotten the name of the country.
Which country? What, I mean, maybe I could be of...
It is very close. It was part of Malaysia and Singapore. Yes, Singapore. Right. Yes, I was watching a video from Singapore, and the Prime Minister was telling us that if you are not honest and clean, don't join politics. I was like, woo. He was like, no, you must make sure that you are clean and you are honest before you join politics. And how did they come across, how did they solve their corruption issues? The former Prime Minister at Independence made it very clear that once you dirty yourself, you will be cleaned. And one of his own friends, who was a minister, went on holiday trip with a vendor or a private sector person. On his return, he was being investigated and was being processed for court. He thought he could depend upon the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister said, no, this is your business, go and answer for it. What happened there, I am not part of it. And the guy took his life. And the Prime Minister drew attention to the other people. He said, you see, even my friend, I could not help him. He committed suicide. So the rest of you, there is nothing going to be less than that.
Do you know what comes to mind, interestingly, as you say this? You remember when Akufo-Addo took over the reins of government, he did say that, in fact, before he even did, he did say, and I may paraphrase here, that those within his party who think they are coming into power so that they will benefit from the boons of governance or make money will be sorely disappointed. Have you seen that?
Exactly.
Have you seen that disappointment?
If you wanted to make money, go to the private sector.
Exactly.
If you wanted to make money. But these are all rhetorics, and at the end of the day, we have seen people who are filthy rich, filthy rich, over a few years of joining his government. So I have not seen that commitment yet. So when people are now going around promising, and especially for the vice president who is still part of the government, why will he not, if he's mindful or he's minded to get the right thing done, why doesn't he go to cabinet, or why doesn't he go to see the president? We must start now. Ghanaians are hurting. I remember his this thing. Ghanaians are suffering. We are suffering. So don't say we should wait till next year. You are number 2. So we should go to cabinet and tell cabinet that, look, Ghanaians are suffering. Let's start implementing some of the solutions today.
All right. And so just if you want to go there, on a scale of 1 to 10, the fight against corruption, how well have we fared? We're in the 8th year of this administration.
I will not even give them 50%. I may rank them between 30 to 40%.
That's 3 or 4 out of 10.
Yes, and that 3 out of or 4 out of 10 is for the institutional arrangements they are put in place, not the actual implementation.
Right. Let's talk briefly about the special prosecutor, because he's also had cause to lament funding where his office would be, getting the right staff, having the leeway to operate. I mean, sometimes maybe he's also gone a certain way, calling about being allowed to be on, is it the Judicial Service Board? I'm not so sure. I have to check on that. Among others, some have said that has no bearing on his work. But when you look specifically at the Office of the Special Prosecutor, are we doing what it takes to allow that outfit to work so corruption can be dealt with? A case in point, Cecilia Abnadapa and the entire saga that happened.
Well, I stated earlier on, if you remember, that I said I don't think the fight against corruption can be won by just creating additional institutions or putting in place new systems which do not add value. It is my considered opinion that the best way to go is not in creating a new office as in the Office of the Special Prosecutor. But if that is what it will take for us to nip corruption in the bud, then why not? I have no problem about that. But I think there are cheaper options, and that should have been explored instead of what it is. But if you remember again, Benjamin, I have always said that once you fight corruption, corruption will fight you back. Corruption fights anybody at all that fights corruption. And that is what he's facing. What about Martin Amidu? Martin Amidu, out of frustration, had to resign and go away. And fortunately, between myself and Martin Amidu, we had a lot of collaboration. So I know a lot of the frustrations that he went through, which I will not put those frustrations in public domain because he didn't put it in public domain himself. And he has not asked me to do so, so I will not do that. I have no doubt in my mind that is the same frustration that Kisia Ejaben is facing. The perception of people in government is that they are entitled to get away with anything that they do, be it contrary to the law or wrong. They think the accountability, the holding of people accountable, has to do with opponents and people who are not within their cycle. And I think that is what do you call it, Mr. Kisia Ejaben is facing. If you take Cecilia Dapa's case, without making any pronouncement that she is guilty of anything or whatever it is, at least it is mind-boggling. It is mind-boggling that someone has money in his or her house to the extent that over $1 million or whatever was stolen and they didn't even know. It took some time before they get to know. So much money, and what will you be doing with that money? I don't know whether you... Benjamin, you have seen $1 million before. Cash stuck in somebody's house.
I don't think that's even a question to ask.
Yes. And Benjamin, what is disturbing is that when she decided to resign, in accepting the appointment, why did the president has to add that I know you'll be, for lack of remembering what exactly said, you'll be vindicated sort of at the end. Why should the president go to that?
Her integrity will shine through.
Will shine through, yes. Why? What was the need for that? So it goes to embolden those who are also practicing it. And I'm sure that she's not alone. There may be other people. So, well, as far as I'm concerned, the rhetorics are far so higher than actions on the ground. In fact, if there is even inaction at all that I see as a fight against corruption is just rhetorics. Talk, no action. If somebody call it no action, talk only, NATO. That is what I hear.
And speaking of corruption, another angle that has drawn the ire, the angst of ordinary Ghanaians has to do with scholarships. Now, while you were at Post, you started digging into this matter. I found it interesting because the Scholarship Secretariat recently, and not recently, quite a while back, years ago, when they reached out to, the Fourth Estate reached out to the Scholarship Secretariat, they were denied. confidential information and all of that. They had to fall on the RTI law to get it. And then instead of giving them PDFs, they gave them, about 10,000 pages to go and sift through. I always find it funny looking at how that was handled. But scholarships, and what should go to the poor, the needy. Some people say they are Ghanaian, yes, but how does a CEO of a medical facility who is making so much money qualify when the ordinary Ghanaian scoring 93 in that aptitude test run by the same institution does not qualify? People who are ministers, members of parliament, well connected to those who walk the corridors of power, are getting these when ordinary people can't get them. One person's scholarship for a 2-week, 3-week program can take care of about 50, 60 students locally here for master's degrees. And somehow we're okay with that. But let's go to the very start. When you started unearthing this and where we are now.
Thank you very much, Benjamin. You said the behavior of the Secretariat to you is funny. I don't think it's funny at all. It's very regrettable, to say the least, that a public servant, you are serving the interests of the public, and you are supposed to be transparent and accountable. And when a law actually provide this information, and when they request it, you say, look, I'm going to give you hard copies. So they spend so much money to make hard copies and give that to the Fourth Estate. So that Fourth Estate should spend so much effort typing all this, converting the soft into hard and hard into soft. It is just absurd. I don't think that behavior should be encouraged at all. I think the Scholarship Secretariat should bow their head in shame. It's a disgraceful behavior, and they should desist from it. I thought maybe when I read it the first time, I thought real estate was rather Fourth Estate was rather asking for hard copies. So I was like, why did they ask for it? Then when I read the story further, I realized that no, they said they can only give. In fact, they even refused, and later on it came. Let me say that, Benjamin, when it came to my notice that was happening, how scholarships which were intended for gifted but needy students were being used by politicians, people in academia, senior journalists, and etc., I didn't believe it at all. But I just gave the team the benefit of the doubt and said, okay, go and have a look at it, and let's see what it is. I remember when even I saw the draft audit report, I couldn't believe it. I even reached out to the then Education Minister, Dr. Matthew Prempe. Is that the name?
Yes, Dr. Matthew Prempe.
Yes. I even reached out to him because I was doubtful that as a member of parliament, he took money which was meant for gifted but needy students.
Well, when he was asked of this, I think when moving to, he said he would do it again, given the opportunity.
Yes, I heard it. And I was like, what is wrong with our members of parliament? Somebody makes such a statement and you approve of him when he actually committed an illegality, from my point of view anyway. The point is this. Let me explain why I think it was an illegality. You may say that we differ in understanding who is gifted and needy. Granted. So we may take it that he is gifted and needy. So granted. But if you read the Gate Fund Act, Section 2B, it says that the money should be used to fund second cycle and tertiary education in Ghana. What about that? So the law has specifically demarcated the geographical space within which the money could be applied. So from my point of view, whether he was brilliant or whether he was gifted and needy or not, the money was meant for funding education here in Ghana. So you could not have used it to any other country. But then those who made the law were seated there. And he said if he got the opportunity, he would do it again. And they allowed it to slide. We may have to maybe get another explanation from them. I couldn't understand it. So this is what is happening. And if you heard me, remember I said that once there are no consequences for misbehavior, it will continue. One will have expected that when this was brought to the fore as a result of the audit report, it will have stopped. If you remember, in the audit report, one of our concerns was also that, according to the law, the money should be given to the scholarship secretariat for them to administer. But then Gate Fund was administering it themselves. That, I'm told, has changed. So the money has been given to the scholarship secretariat, who, from my point of view, 24/7 are administering scholarship. And if this is how they are administering scholarship, then Jesus Christ, our God, should help us. Then they are a complete waste. It's better we scrap it so that we don't have a system.
The leadership of the scholarship secretariat is a complete waste?
Complete waste. They are not just waste, they are useless. We shouldn't have.
Isn't that a bit harsh, referring to the leadership of the scholarship secretariat? Because
I wish I have a harsher word. I wish I have a harsher word for them, because 24/7, that is what they do, and they have not been able to come out with any guidelines or something to determine who qualify for this, to ensure that they are within the remit of the law. I am not talking about the total money which went to them, because I don't know how much money they get from other sources. But the little which came from Gate Fund could not again be used for foreign trips or for foreign studies. If they were doing this, then they are more than useless from my point of view. Let me be honest.
How about the many thousands of others who got the scholarship? Yes, I do know. There are many people who tell you brilliant, needy, got there, didn't get it. There was someone who took an aptitude test, scored 93, conducted by the scholarship secretariat, still didn't get it.
Yeah.
Brilliant students who were on the list, and all of a sudden they were told, oh, MPs and ministers came and, protocol and all of that. So these brilliant and very needy students couldn't, continue with their studies. That is there. But how about the thousands of others who also get these scholarships, who are not politicians or whatever? Does that justify your use of, useless for the secretary?
I am not saying that they are useless just because they give it to politicians. But whoever is not deserving it, who gets it, is completely no. That is my point of view. That is all they do. Remember, if you are occupying a public office, you don't exercise discretion capriciously and anyhow. You must make sure that you are doing your work and you are objective in the delivery of your work. So today we should be able to look at least a guideline or a manual, which I think they could have formulated after consulting the various stakeholders, to say that, well, from our point of view, if you say you are gifted and needy, you must meet these conditions. Because how on earth can we say that the daughter of, the former Minister of Finance, is it a daughter or a son? And we were told...
I know whom you're referring to, right.
Yes. I'm told somebody also related to Honorable Fed. These are the gifted but needy.
But what if that person were not being, the assumption is that, but what if the person is technically not being catered for by this other person that is being referenced?
So we should use the resources to take care of people's irresponsibility. I am a father and I have responsibility for my children. If you are minded, Benjamin, I have 3 children that I could have gone and applied for scholarship secretariat for. They are all schooling. I could have applied for scholarship for them. I have not applied for any of them because I think it doesn't, in fact, it didn't even occur to me or doesn't even cross me that I should go there. So that is the point I'm making, that from my point of view, we've lost it. And I remember the gentleman again on one of your shows, I think Joy FM shows, was saying that because there is no law, he was exercising discretion.
Exactly.
Let's grant it that there is no law. Is he saying that the portion which came from Gate Fund, there is no law there?
Right.
The law clearly says that use it for needy but gifted students within Ghana, secondary and tertiary. So the courses they were attending in London, it's now London part of Ghana, New York, etc. They are all part of Ghana. My goodness.
He has also called for a scholarship act, that if we want this to be done right, we need an act to give guidance on it. What do you think about that?
Yes, I've also called for it. I think their discretion is not good. So we need a law which may have to detail out who qualifies and who does not qualify, and also require transparency. For instance, the law may need to tell us who gets it each year. There must be a compulsory disclosure every year, publishing, so that we know who has received our money and who has not received it. And I think that is very necessary.
You know, this, if I were interacting with Dr. Kwame Asante or any of my former political science lecturers, this would come to mind. One of the definitions of politics is who gets what, when, and how. And I guess in politics in Ghana, it shows clearly who gets what, when, and how. But let's, moving from talking about all of this, let's also talk about the SML bits and the KPMG report. Now we've been told clearly that Mr. President has taken, custody of the report by KPMG. The question is, what's happening to that report? At least we know per reports, like what happened to Professor Kwabena Frimpong Boateng's report, that if you're not careful, sometimes reports can be there. Some have suggested that there may be some parts of the report that that cast a not too positive light on the work of SML. But for you, the initial stages of SML, the fourth estate's work, the KPMG report, which we've not yet seen, and where we are now, what is your appreciation of the issue, and what are your expectations?
Well, the minimum I expected was that immediately the report was ready, it should be made public. It should be made public, so because you see, the accountability is not to president. It's to the people of Ghana. It is the public funds, people's money. So anytime that those reports are ready, they must be put into the public. I don't think it is for nothing that Section 23 of the Audit Service Act provides that the Auditor-General should publish his report immediately as soon as he presents it to the Speaker. So immediately the Speaker receives the audit report, it is published. Because the accountability is not necessary to Parliament. They are just the representatives of the people. But the ultimate accountability is to the Ghanaians. So the Ghanaians must know. So if you have used taxpayers' money, mind you, taxpayers' money has been wasted or allegedly wasted. And now you use additional taxpayers' money to go and commission such an investigation. And the report comes out and you are keeping it in the cupboard. What is the use for it? So now it seems they are now thinking about how do we do the damage control so that people may not look too bad or to do what? The perception it brings is that we are trying to cover up. If I were the president or he is minded, he should just put that report into the public domain so we can all read and digest it and see whether it is good or it is not good.
Do you think there's something to be hidden? Having followed the story and these actions, do you think there's something being hidden?
Well, whenever you are administering a system and you are not transparent, you create opportunity for what? Speculations. And these speculations cannot be a positive. They are always negative. If you hide yourself in the room and you allow anybody to come, you won't talk to anybody, we think you are doing something bad. So your guess is as good as mine. I seriously think there is something fishy about what maybe is going on after the report was completed.
And all of this, talking about the legal trajectory of things and checking for corruption and all of that, all of this, as far as government is concerned, also falls at the doorstep or lands at the doorstep of the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, who should advise on some of these actions and inactions. How would you assess the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, not just tied to this, but also tied to the work of the OSP and tied to other happenings currently in our country? How would you assess the Attorney General?
Let me say that, again, when it comes to the Office of the Attorney General, I am one of those who are of the considered opinion that they should decouple the Attorney General's office from that of the Minister of Justice. Because most of the times before the decision or the activity is commissioned, the Attorney General might have been part of it, sitting in cabinet, or maybe had given an advice, and the thing goes wrong. It becomes difficult and challenging for the Attorney General to go back and hold his colleagues accountable. Therefore, separating the Attorney General office from the office of the Minister of Justice, I think, is very necessary. Charity begins at home. So let me start from my end. As far as Auditor General is concerned, I think the Attorney General's office did not help us at all. There were several cases which we thought the Attorney General could come in and even file a suit or prosecute the people for us to get more information and deterrence in the system. But the Attorney General's office was quiet, to the extent that at a point in time, I wrote them to say that there is a provision under Section 27, I guess, I'm not too sure of the section of the Public Financial Management Act, which requires that the Attorney General should produce each year a report giving the status update on how he has handled findings of the Auditor General with regard to the disallowance and surcharge. So I wrote them to say that I've been in office for some years now. I've not seen a copy of the report because the law says a copy should be sent to the Auditor General. If you go to Parliament, a copy to the Auditor General. So I wrote them that, can you share my copy with me because I've not seen what we have done so far. In other words, I was telling the Attorney General, you are sleeping. You are not doing what is expected of you. So I can say that the Attorney General's office is really in a situation where it's very difficult to do the best that he or she can do, especially when he combines the ministerial position, or we combine the ministerial position with that of the Attorney General. And that is bringing about what is happening.
My final bit to you, and I'll just put them together so we can cap off the conversation. One would have to do with DUMSO, or the erratic power situation. The Energy Minister, Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh, whom you just referenced, said that it was evil to even contemplate that, wishing evil for Ghana. But in recent times, stakeholders met, closed-door meeting, and in there was the chairman of the Mines and Energy Committee of Parliament and MP for Achime-Buakwa South, Samuel Atachia. And he said, having had these discussions and come to that realization, he said there was the need for a load-shedding timetable to manage the situation, and that this had become inevitable as the players in the value chain found a solution or solutions to the crisis. What do you think about that? And what I want you to leave me with, I don't know what the power situation is where you find yourself. Do you think we're in DUMSO? Do you think we need a timetable? And finally, Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, it's been 8 years. On a scale of 1 to 10, how do you assess his governance? Those are the two questions I'll leave you with. Final thoughts.
Thank you again, Benjamin. It doesn't matter how far or how fast the energy minister would like to run away from it. We are in DUMSO. It doesn't matter how intelligent or wisely he would like to put it. When people don't get their lights, it is doomed. And when it comes back, it is so, isn't it? So we are in DUMSO. There's no question about that. And I thought that being a public servant again, he must be mindful of some of his utterances. I found it a bit unpleasant. You know, Napo is my very good friend. In fact, I call him my brother, actually. We date back several years. I found it a bit disturbing when he tells people that, he told people that bring your own load sharing scheme. I said, no, I think he should be joking. If he actually said that, he must be joking, because that is not acceptable. I think that the need to address the power situation is very critical, because it is energy or power that drives the economy. If this continues for some time, or after some time, we are going to ensure, or we are going to face a lot of slowdown of productivity in the economy, and it will not be the best thing. So we must rather be forthright with ourselves and say, yes, the problem is here. It has come before and it was solved. Why don't we do the same? What are the solutions? What can we do to find a solution to it? So that is what my take on it is. You want me to rate the government. The rating does not go beyond the same 3 to 4 out of 10. Governance, when it comes to governance, it's not a matter of pride. It's not a matter of using arrogant words. I heard another minister somewhere, I think in Ashanti region, who was talking about let them show me what they started and completed. And so we are talking about your regime. We are not talking about the past. All that we do is we do negative benchmarking to say, look, the slabs that I'm giving you are not as hefty as what you used to receive in the past. So don't complain. No, that type of negative benchmarking, if Ghanaians wanted the past to continue, I think they could have retained their administration. So please, public servants, let's be humble. Let's reduce the level of arrogance that we show to people when they complain. Your job is to serve and just serve. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Daniel Yao Domelevo. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. We are very grateful that you took the time from where you are to join us on this conversation this morning. And we wish you the best of the day, sir.
Thank you very much, Benjamin. I wish you the best also. Thank you. Bye.
And that is former Auditor-General Daniel Yao Domelevo, with whom I've been interacting over these last, couple of minutes.
PENDREAM TV now, so far so good. Say open online portal e Ghana. Nipa share, nipa follow, nipa comment here. To my best of knowledge, without any biases, PENDREAM TV.